So, good afternoon. First of all, thank you. Thank you for the prize. Thank you for inviting me here to give a lecture and to talk more about the complete project of the Cosmopolitan Chicken. I started 20 years ago to build some cages and buying land. And it took me a while to come to Linz. Yeah, it's true. Anyway, when I give a lecture, I always start with this picture by saying this is not a chicken. In my opinion, it's a piece of art. And chickens are one of the most domesticated animals in the world, and also the most purebred animals in the world. What you're facing here is a hybrid, is a crossing between Belgium, France, and England. This was presented in a museum in Herford in Germany under the title Wir sind die Andere. To understand more about this project, you have to jump into history. You have to jump into the history of the chicken, because there is only one chicken in the world, which is the red jungle fowl that lives at the feet of the Himalaya. By human interest, it spread its genes all over the world. And you see there in the corner, you see the red jungle fowl. And I said by human interest, and it's not only by human interest, it's also nature that provides us with this chicken. By mutation and manipulation, it spreads its genes all over the world and gives in every country a chicken that tells something about the country. Let me make it clear. I give you an example. This is a poulet de Bresse, a French chicken. It is red in the head, white body, and blue legs. It is the French flag. You can see it in all the chickens. For example, in China, they make a Silkie. It's a typical Chinese chicken and has hairy feathers. Nobody else can do that. In other words, we reflect our culture into a living object. And then, there starts my story. I was thinking about this, but because, you know, to have a French flag in France, that can be funny. But, in other words, we block grow. We put a frame around a living animal. And I was thinking, is that right? There was a question. So in 1999, I started a real crossbreeding project of the Cosmopolitan chicken. I started with the Belgian chicken from Belgian chicken, the Mechelse koekoek, because I'm a Belgian, to crossbreed with the poulet de Bresse from France, and that on the border between Belgium and France. And it was in an exhibition. The result was a Mechelse Bresse, and that one I call an art piece, because it's something else. It's something new. I was facing something that never exists and which was, in my opinion, unstable. It's a hybrid. But that one was the source for the next generation. So with that one, I went to England. And so the whole crossbreeding line gets further. And this year, I went to Slovenia. In Slovenia, we made the Mechelse Styrian, and that one is sitting here in this exhibition. So after so many years and so many generations, 17 of crossbreeding, we have a chicken that contains 17 different countries inside. I mean, if you do this, you are not telling something about the chicken. You say something about our society. I think we are talking about globalization, multiculturalism, cloning, genetic engineering, and so on. I mean, I believe in bringing parts together. I believe if you bring many parts or two parts together, something new can come out. It's about procreation. It's the most driving force in our life, I think. You can say, is this biology? Is this science? I don't care. I mean, for me, it's art. Because it's about surprises. And I think that's very important, these surprises, because I become the watcher of my own project. On one hand, the chicken is giving itself to the project, and on the other side, it's revolting. And I'm in between. I'm the one who be the observer. If I talk about surprises, this one was the second generation, which was brought in Listen Gallery in London, in the center of London. And I have to tell a story. The story is like this. They asked me to make the crossbreeding there with a typical English chicken. And I couldn't find that chicken because in the 60s, the English red cap was so popular that it becomes infertile. Then I went to Northampton. In Northampton, there was a farmer, and he had some of those chickens. And he was so happy that I took them because in 10 years there was no offspring. And then I brought this rooster, which was born on the border between Belgium and France, the new Mechelse Bres, and I put it in the cage in the gallery, and look what happened. After 3 weeks, there was an offspring. The next day, it was on the cover of the Times because they say this is better than the European Union. I mean, fertility. Crossing and fertility. After so many years of making this crossbreeding, I see on the surface a lot of diversity. And from in the beginning, it was of my curiosity, diversity. So, with scientific friends, we went to see what's going on inside, because if you see so much diversity on the surface, the question is, what is really happening inside? I believe in bringing professions together, and I believe that has to be transparent. That's why I'm using glass. Glass has that kind of function, to be transparent and give it to imagination. I mean, glass, you cannot see it when it's transparent, only when you break it. And when you can't see it, the imagination tells you something about the past, the real thing is the present, and the glass is again also the future. It's bringing those parts together. And talking about the future, talking about the past. Every 2 years, I do an expedition to the Himalaya to see where the red jungle fowl lives. And one thing that I discover is that it lives on the border between the jungle and the society. And I think that's very important, because the main question in this story is who came to who? I mean, in our Western culture, we can easily say it was human who took the chicken and brought it all over the world. But actually, it's not true. The first move, also scientifically proved, came from the chicken. So, where are we standing with our domestication? All these kind of thoughts that leads to me for a philosophical model. I mean, what is the philosophical model in this case? You have the horizontal lines where an idea can start. I mean, and I link the horizontal lines to the consumption, to the manipulation, and out of this, there can be a mutation. And the mutation for me is the vertical line. So there are many horizontal lines and many mutations in the same time, so you can make a real raster. I mean, all these kind of ideas that jump to another level when the mutation is taking place. And so it can grow. And for me, it's also a social model, because at the end, I believe there in the global diversity, which is for me equal on a social globalization. Because of all these thoughts, I started 2 years ago with my Opundi. And what is the Opundi? The Opundi is the Open University of Diversity. And I have 3 foundations at this moment. One is the Walking Egg Foundation, which deals with fertility in developing countries. The other one is the Cosmopolitan Chicken Research Foundation, which deals with hybridity in art and science and genetic research. And then the Cosmopolitan Foundation, which is about children's rights. I will talk about 2 foundations, otherwise it takes us too long. The first is the Walking Egg Foundation. And let me be a little literal. I think I felt myself like a walking egg, a transparent one, which was not seen, and that gives itself strong legs to run over the world searching for 37.6 degrees to come out. In other words, somebody else has to take care of you. The Walking Egg today becomes a foundation which deals with fertility in developing countries. I do this together with Professor Will Monblad, which is a fertility specialist on a worldwide level. I do this with the World Health Organization in Geneva, Dr. Mario Miliardi, and our Open University of Diversity. It's about fertility. And how do we deal with fertility? Are we making our world fertile, or are we poison our world? After 10 years collaboration with this doctor, you see here in the clinic where they do EVF, fertility training, you see the art piece. And on one side, you see the science, the books, and on the other side, you see the art piece. And in the middle, you have the hybrid. The hybrid, which is an artificial one in this case, but is the eagle and the chicken. It deals with the power and the strength. Fertility in developing countries, this is the case now in this foundation. And you have to know this. It's a very difficult topic because we are with 7 billion people, and maybe we are with too much. But the problem of this is that we are always saying that they are with too many on the other side of the world. But you have to consider this. A woman who cannot have a child on the other side of the world is less than a dog. Cannot have a name, because she can only have a name when she has a child. I think we have to think about quality. That's why we're working with the WHO, the World Health Organization in Geneva. They have a fantastic family planning. And in the same time, maybe we can help somebody on the other side of the world. It's about balance. And very recently, 1 month ago, we found in this foundation the technique to do a fertility training instead of 4,000 euro for 200 euro. It was worldwide news. So it was a breakthrough. So it's about energy, communication, and life, I think. Trying to share things. Finding, giving knowledge, and finding the solutions for new things. Opundi, second foundation, is the Cosmopolitan Chicken Research Foundation. Hybridity in Art and Science is a foundation where do the research on the genetic research on all the chickens they are born in the project. I do this together with Professor Jurij Krpan from the KU Leuven. He's in human genetics. Piet Stienissen, he's also on human genetics in the U Hasselt. Olivier Hanot from the University of Nottingham, and myself. And we have a complete research team on this subject. How does it start? How does it come so far? Again, I have to tell you a story. On a certain moment, I saw in the garden a rooster totally alone, and I was thinking, what is the matter there? What happens, you know? And I went to see, and then I saw that he lost his spur. And you have to know, when a rooster loses spur, he cannot impress female, and he cannot fight anymore. So he's excluded from the group. So I took him and I isolated him, and I went to a friend of mine who is a stomatologist, and I was asking, can we help this rooster? Can we do something? Can we bring him back to his society? And he said, yes, via the new methods of implant, we can give him a new spur. I said, that's fantastic, but let's give him a golden one. And for me, gold was very important. Why? Because it's the perception that we have. It's a piece of art, you know. He becomes, from the low level of nothing, excluded from everybody, to the high level. He becomes a king. And I think it's very important. And this project becomes even more important because they brought me to court for this. So the Animal Rights Organization, They sent me a letter and they say, listen, you cannot cut the spur of a rooster. I said, I didn't do that. So they brought me to court and I thought it's going to be very easy, that case. So I went to court and then they say, okay, they listened to my story and they were very impressed by my story. I mean, the activist was impressed because he said, okay, he helped this rooster, which was really in my mind. But then the judge said, listen, there is a problem. I said, yeah, what? Well, the problem is that you cannot, by law, give a protease on a chicken. And there I was standing. I said, okay, so I go to jail, you know. Anyway, he said, there was a moment of a lightning, you know, in my head. And I said, and what is allowed? He said, yes, listen, what is allowed, you can burn the beak, you can burn the wings, you can cut the leg, and you can kill the chicken. And I was looking to the activist and I said, who do you like the most, you know? Do you like the artist or the law? So they skip everything. So they set me free for one time. And then I called the head of this organization and I said to him, listen, I said, you know how it is with my project. And he said, yes, but you know, we have to follow the rules. And I said, listen, I am an artist, I said. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a politician. I'm not an activist. I said, I did my work as an artist to give comment on society. Now you have to take your rule as an activist to change the law. And I think that's very important. It's very important how an art piece can come into society. Another thing was this installation that I present in Guangzhou. It was dealing with environment. So we made like a complete installation, 1,000 square meter, a completely jungle, which was 45 degrees and a humidity. So, and everybody who is stepping to this jungle has to wear a mask and cannot do this and cannot touch that, because in this jungle was the Red Jungle Fall. So, and the big question of this installation is this one. What do we have to protect? Do we have to protect the Red Jungle Fall, which is the base, metaphorically, for a society? Or do we have to protect what we produce, like here, all these eggs, finally stamped? These were representing the whole generations of crossbreeding. And this was a refrigerator. You step into 45 degrees to 5 degrees. And then you come in the incubator, and this is the human incubator. This is the 37.6 degrees to come out, to be reborn. So talking about environment, I was facing the chicken flu. And like I'm saying, you know, the environment is always playing with my work. And I think that's very important. I had to take a lot of steps there. So the chicken flu came from Holland into Belgium, and the first village that it hit was my village where I lived. So 50 meters from my door, they killed all the chickens. And I saw that the Cosmopolitan Chicken Project was in the middle of it, you know. It was in the middle between the chickens that died and the chickens that can live. And out of this, I started my frozen culture project. The frozen culture project is a project where I have to take the DNA, where we have to take the sperm, and we bring it into a freezing tun. So it was a new backup. Frozen culture. The question is this hybrid? And we become afraid of our own environment. And maybe this square meter is the most dangerous place on earth at that moment. I mean, at that moment, I had to take other steps with this project. I had to bring all my chickens on different places in the world. And one of these places is Tanzania. Tanzania, at the feet of the Kilimanjaro. There I built one of my breeding centers. And I built 8 different breeding centers. A place where the climate is not good, hygiene is not the best one, you know, And then it becomes more interesting. Changing environment, having it there on different places in the world. That brought me to the Biennial of Dakar. And in the Biennial of Dakar, I was presenting 10,000 eggs. It was a beautiful floor. It was a new incubator. And the next day, we were celebrating and we were eating all the eggs. Having an installation there, having a breeding center there, we start to take the blood with the whole research team. We start to look what was happening inside the chicken, changing environment, making them hybrid. All the blood samples went to the universities, the different universities, and we were asking 3 questions. First, is this diversity? Second, what about the immunity? And third, what about the fertility? And what we saw is that the immunity doubled, the fertility went up from 30 to 90%, and it was full of diversity. And I think these are quite some numbers. So I start to think, I said, maybe we have to create for all these foundations, for all these thoughts, we have to create a place where we can bring people together to discuss on different topics, like immunity, fertility, and diversity. So it's knowledge, and it's knowledge that has to come to us. I think it's human rights. And you also see this piece here in this exhibition. Having all this knowledge as a kind of new library, and on top of them, the legs of the primal chicken, bio and cultural diversity. It becomes a place which is actually my studio. So you see my work, you step into the installation in different environments, but it's not only on that place that we move, but we also go with the Open University of Diversity to different places in the world. Like you see here in the Biennial of Venice, and putting a marble rooster into the history of Venice on a place that called Loredan, which was a palace and a library where scientists and artists were coming together for centuries. In the same place was the breeding center. New generations were born there. And we brought a study about anthropology, biologic study, and scientific studies. All that knowledge we try to spread all over the world, like giving lectures in China, and like here in the Worldly House in Documenta, where it was presented, under the title, Hybridity in Art and Science. I believe that we have to look in a transparent bowl together with different professions, different meanings, different knowledge, because I strongly believe that every organism is looking to an other organism to survive. I thank you.